set. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. In a moment, you're going to hear from Mayor de Blasio, and then Chief of Crime Control Strategies, Lori Pollock, she'll go over the main numbers. First, I'd like to commend again all the honorees at our NYPD Medal Day this morning at Police Headquarters. We had 47 Distinguished Service Medals, all of which were awarded posthumously to NYPD members who died of 9/11 related illnesses in the past couple of years. In addition, we had 15 Medal for Valor winners, 23 Police Combat Cross honorees, and 3 recipients of our Medal of Honor, the department's highest award. Those 3 cops are Lieutenant Manny Kuo, Sergeant Arvid Flores, and Police Officer Elwin Martinez. They were recognized for their courage above and beyond the call of duty in ending the horrific episode that took the life of Sergeant Paul Tuizulo in 2016. I mention all of this now because it bears repeating. The work that the men and women of the NYPD engage in on a daily basis is not easy. It takes determination, skill, and fortitude to professionally handle all the different things today's cops are tasked with. They don't do it for thanks or praise, of course. They do it because that's what cops do. And so I'd like everyone to just think about these brave police officers today, especially all those who gave their lives in service to our great city. Here in Brooklyn North, much of our crime-fighting efforts are directed from this historic building, which, believe it or not, was built in 1895. I want to thank Chief Madry. I think you're in the back. Jeff, thanks for your hospitality. He's the CEO of Patrol Borough Brooklyn North. Today, our cops' hard work here is clearly paying off as we continue to rebound from the crime spikes we saw earlier this year. There's still much more work to be done here and in every borough, but we're focused very precisely on the hotspots and the criminal element that's responsible for much of the violence and disorder we're still experiencing. It's very fluid work that requires our constant attention, and we continually adapt as circumstances dictate. I remind everyone that the historic crime lows New York City sees today are absolutely not promised for tomorrow. These are not permanent achievements. They are continuing challenges that require the full diligence of every member of the NYPD with the full and willing partnership of everyone who lives and works in New York City. And together, we won't rest until every block and every neighborhood enjoys the same level of safety and well-being as the rest of the city. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner, it was an honor to join with you at Medal Day, honor those we've lost and honor those heroes who have done so much for our city. And today, we have an opportunity to talk about what the men and women of the NYPD have achieved in the month of May, and it's outstanding. Commissioner, congratulations to you and your team. May was a really, really impressive month in terms of crime fighting. And I want people to recognize that when I talk about the NYPD setting new records all the time, that means human lives saved. That means families that are not torn apart. That means people are living a better quality of life. So we should never get too used to the notion that these records being set is just another set of words or statistics. It's something very powerful, very human. And it's also an incredible validation of the fact the NYPD is getting better all the time. So when you look at the month of May, this was the safest May in modern history in this city. This, in terms of the statistics we've been keeping now for decades, this was the safest May we have ever had. Overall crime down almost 7% compared to May a year ago. And in the area that we care about so deeply, stopping people from losing their life in our city, in the area of homicides down 57% May 2019 compared to May 2018, 57% drop in homicides. The all-time lowest number of homicides for any month of May, and we're on an extraordinary pace now, 5 months in the year. We've never seen anything like this before in terms of the NYPD driving down homicides to such a low level. Shootings also down almost 21% May 2019 compared to May 2018. This is extraordinary. So I'm always going to keep telling you we're the safest big city in America, but we actually get safer all the time because of the amazing efforts of the NYPD. Now, we're here also to talk about a set of challenges we face, but I want to always accent the positive that when we face challenges, it's with greater cooperation than ever before between our communities and the NYPD, and that is to the credit of Commissioner O'Neill and his whole team and the neighborhood policing vision. It's creating a unity of purpose that I don't think we've ever seen on this level before in the history of New York City. And that is made vivid today by the community leaders who are joining us, shoulder to shoulder with the NYPD to fight all crime and particularly to fight hate crimes. And I want to thank them. I want to thank from the community that we have the pleasure of being in here. Of course, Devorah Halberstam of the Jewish Children's Museum. Thank you, Rabbi Hanina Sperlin of the Crown Heights Jewish Community Council, Rabbi Eli Cohen of the Crown Heights Jewish Community Center, Rabbi David Niederman of the United Jewish Organization of Williamsburg, all of whom are outstanding community leaders. Also want to mention Sam Stern, another great community leader. And I want to thank leaders who reach in their influence and impact all across this city and all across this country. Rabbi Joseph Potasnik of the New York Board of Rabbis, Rabbi Michael Miller of the Jewish Community Relations Council, Rabbi David Zwiebel of Agudath Israel of America, and Alexander Rosenberg of the Anti-Defamation League. To all of you, and so many dear friends here, thank you for all you do for this city, and thank you for all you do to work closely with the NYPD. This is how we defeat hate crimes, and this is how we defeat hatred. And Devorah, particularly to you, the efforts with the Children's Museum to go to the root cause, teaching all New Yorkers and starting with our children to love each other, to understand each other. And thank you, and God bless you for that. So to everyone, I want to, as we talk about the challenge of hate crimes, I also want to focus on the success that Patrol Borough Brooklyn North has had. And to Chief Madry and all of your team, I want to offer my appreciation and congratulations. We all know, we remember earlier in the year, there were some real challenges in Brooklyn North in terms of fighting crime, but some real important progress has been made. Major crime in Brooklyn North down 8% this May compared to a year ago. So I want to commend everyone for that focus. But again, one of the areas we are concerned about deeply is the increase in hate crimes. And we know that many people who commit hate crimes hope that they will set off a chain reaction, that their hatred will inspire more hatred. Our job is to achieve the opposite, to turn that hatred into something very different, to turn it around and help foster understanding, to bring people together, to create common cause between all communities, to push back and fight back the forces of hate. In Brooklyn North, this is the place, I would say, if you wanted to see what community people have done over decades to overcome division, to form unity among different communities, this is the place you would come. The story of Crown Heights, we know, was a painful one years ago, but it has been replaced by one that's very hopeful, of community leaders of all backgrounds finding each other, reaching each other, finding common cause. So here in Brooklyn North, which includes Crown Heights, includes Williamsburg, many Jewish communities that have really borne the brunt of these recent hate crimes. I want to commend Chief Madry and again all of his colleagues for the fact they held a town hall meeting specifically to address hate crimes at PS 376 and to bring in the community and ensure that the voices of the community were heard and to make sure there was real partnership in this effort. And community members gave very helpful advice about where police officers needed to be more present, where we needed to make redeployments to maximize the battle against hatred. That said, we've talked about it here, but it is a citywide reality. And it's particularly stark against the contrast of overall crime steadily going down. We've seen this increase in hate crimes. Hate crimes up 64% citywide versus the same point in 2018. That's an unacceptable reality, and we're going to fight it with everything we've got. And I have to be clear, many, many communities have borne the brunt of hate crimes, and we should all be united in challenging all the forces of hatred. It is also fair to say, in this recent period, the Jewish community has borne the brunt, especially 60% of these hate crimes were anti-Semitic crimes. So we are particularly attuned to addressing that horrible trend and making sure that with the force of the NYPD and all of the tools we have at our disposal in this city, that we will turn that tide. We saw that just recently at the Jewish Children's Museum last Thursday, and Devorah and I spoke immediately after the incident, where we saw an anti-Semitic message found right there at the gateway to a place that's devoted to love and understanding. We've seen other types of hate. A man entered a mosque in Richmond Hill threatening Muslims in April. We saw just last Friday 2 rainbow flags set on fire outside a gay bar in Harlem. We don't take any of this lightly. We will not tolerate it. And I believe that we in leadership can provide positive messages and can provide guidance and try and uplift people, but I also believe in consequences. I believe that one of the best ways to educate people is to show them that there will be very serious consequences if they act in a way that harms others. And so we are going after the perpetrators of these crimes very aggressively. In fact, year to date, 2019, hate crime arrests are up 19%. The NYPD is moving aggressively to address the problem. And we want anyone who contemplates such an action to understand that we will find them, we will arrest them. And then I want to dwell on what happens next, and people should understand this. And I want to give this example, that if someone, New Yorker, were to throw a punch or cause injury to someone, in many cases, just in an everyday situation in which a hate crime was not involved, it's still unacceptable. That can mean up to a year in jail. If it is also a hate crime, that can mean up to 4 years in jail. So I want all the community leaders, but I want to ask the news media as well to spread the word that when someone is motivated by hate and it's proven, it adds jail time, it adds consequence to what they have done. We are going to act also in many other ways to prevent hate crimes, and I want to commend the City Council for their leadership in creating the Office to Prevent Hate Crimes, and that was originally slated to open up in November. I'm announcing that we will open that office this summer. We're speeding up that opening. We're working with the council to get up and running immediately on efforts to prevent hate crimes, to support the victims, to constantly update the community on what we're seeing so it can be addressed. I also want to urge people to report hate crimes. We know, and this is a phenomenon we've dealt with several major areas of crime, that there was a history of crimes not being reported. And I want to say to anyone, if you're a victim of one of these crimes, we need to know. I don't want anyone to ever feel embarrassed or ashamed. The police need to know so they can stop it from happening to anybody else, whether you're in the Jewish community or LGBT community or immigrant communities, any community. We need you to report anytime you feel you've been the victim of a hate crime. So the bottom line here is very clear. Anyone who is a perpetrator of a hate crime, we will find you, we will arrest you, we will prosecute you, you will suffer the consequences. And for all those people of goodwill who are the vast majority of the city, please keep upholding the values of New York City, a place where everyone is respected, a place where everyone is supported, where we're all in this together. Everyday New Yorkers can be voices of understanding and respect and love, and that is one of the greatest ways to fight hate. With that, just a few words in Spanish. Acabamos de tener el mes de mayo más seguro en la historia moderna de nuestra ciudad. Sin embargo, debemos advertir que también registramos un gran aumento en crímenes de odio. Gracias al Consejo Municipal estamos creando una oficina para ayudar a prevenir, investigar y llevar ante la justicia a todos los que cometan estos crímenes. With that, I want to turn to a leader who's doing so much to fight hate crimes, but also helping to lead this effort to historically reduce crime in the city, our Chief of Crime Control Strategies, Lori Pollock.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Police Commissioner, and the people of the Borough of Brooklyn for having us. May 2019 is the 8th month in a row that we have seen a reduction in overall crime. This month, overall crime is down almost 7%, hitting below 8,000 index crimes for the first May in the Comstat era. This May is also the first month since August 2017 that each of our 7 major crime categories, including murders and shooting incidents, have seen a reduction. 4 of these categories have seen triple-digit reductions: robbery, felony assault, burglary, and grand larceny, they have all seen triple-digit reductions, and this May includes the single lowest number of shootings recorded during any week in the CompStat era. Murder is down 57%, and in a city of 8.5 million people, we recorded 15 murders this May. That is 20 fewer murders than last year in May. Shootings, we set a new record low of 61. Shooting incidents this May with 16 fewer shootings than last year. In Patrol Borough, Brooklyn North, where we are now, down 38% for May in shootings, or 15 versus 24. 15 shootings is the lowest number for any May in Brooklyn North in the CompStat era, and those shootings in Brooklyn were concentrated in the 7-5, 7-7, and 7-9 precincts. Rape for the third month in a row is down 157 versus 181. We have seen a decrease in same-year reporting, and out-of-year reporting remains consistent with the last year. And I still think that it's too soon to tell what the decreases mean. We believe the crime of rape is still underreported, and we urge victims of sexual assault to please come forward no matter when the assault occurred. Robbery is down over 10% from May 2018, and this May is the 8th straight month that robbery has shown a reduction. Burglary is down 8 straight months and finished May below 900 burglaries for an all-time low in May, and felony assaults are down 6%. Grand larcenies are down 3.5%, and grand larceny auto is also down 7.5% for a new record low in May. So these are the lowest crime numbers in history, but there are still crime victims, and we will continue to strive to make every New Yorker safe. So I thank you for listening.
Thanks, Lori. Any questions about the crime statistics? Yep, right here.
So when it comes to the hate crimes, what specifically are you seeing the most? Is it graffiti? Is it assaults?
Dermot, you want to give a breakdown?
Sure. When you look at the overall numbers, as the mayor said, it's up 64%. It's a raw number of 184 versus 112 for an increase of 72. By and large, what we see across the city is, as you described, either criminal mischief, property damage, or graffiti. That makes up the vast majority. And we treat them as seriously as we would an assault, quite frankly, because of the message of hate that it sends to all the residents of the city. So we will be clear, we'll continue to aggressively investigate these crimes until, whether it's sexual orientation, ethnicity, your religion, no one should be at fear worshiping, walking around New York City, and that's our message.
Yeah, in front row.
In a New York Times article last week, Chief Monahan said gang-related shootings weren't really over drugs, but based on general opposition and online beef. I was wondering how the NYPD is working to head off that violence before it, comes off of social media and goes into the streets.
Again, it's understanding the beef, understanding where these beefs are going to take place. And as I said in that article, it's about one set of kids not liking another set, and being able to deploy out there and working with Dermot Shea and the investigators, identifying who are the individuals who are willing to take out a gun, carry it on the street and use it, and build cases against them so that we can get them put away.
Dave.
Commissioner, can I just get your general reaction when you see the overall crime numbers continuing to go down? Because I think people are out there have heard it for so long that maybe it's not a surprise to them. They just kind of expect this. But how long are we going to continue to see in a city this big crime going down? And your reaction? And then also I wanted to ask you, why do you think that anti-Semitic attacks in New York City, is there a reason why?
So wait a minute, Commissioner, Dave would like you to forecast the future and bring out your crystal ball and tell him exactly what's going to happen with crime going forward.
That's what I get paid to do, isn't it? So I think that what you've seen over the last 5 or 6 years, especially since the advent of neighborhood policing and putting all the detectives under Bob Boyce and now Dermot Shea, I think you've seen a real focus on the small percentage of the population committing the violence. And as far as the sector cops and the NCOs within the precincts, I think they are, certainly our work isn't done, but those relationships that they've managed to build over the last couple of years have really helped us fight crime and to do it instantly. So like I said in my remarks, we can't take this as a given. We all have to continue to work, not just us. It's got to be the whole criminal justice system. It's got to be quite frankly, all 8.6 million New Yorkers working together to do this, because we're at a good point now. And I know we can do more. I've been conducting meetings I think I'm doing my 9th meeting in the 4-1 on Thursday night in 9 precincts where the violent crime rate is double the citywide average. So there is a lot more to do, and every neighborhood should be as safe as the next one. So.
Yeah, and Dave, just to throw in, look, it's been 6 years in a row. It's absolutely extraordinary. So I think there's more we can do. I'm very hopeful that when you see a team like the NYPD continuing to set records, they're going to go a lot farther. And I don't think New Yorkers should ever get numb to the fact that this takes extraordinary effort between precision policing, neighborhood policing, all these strategies, the 2,000 more officers that we put on patrol in the last few years, it's all adding up. But I think what you're seeing now is that the progress is helping to open the door to even more progress.
And is there a reason why on hate crimes, especially the anti-Semitic attacks, I think that's surprising to people, especially in New York City of all cities.
Yeah, it is, but I think, Dermot, we have an increase in arrests this year, so maybe, Dermot, you can talk about the people that we've arrested so far and some of the motivations that you've uncovered.
So when you look at, and this is calendar year 2019, essentially through the first 5 months, we're up 19% in the arrests that we've made thus far, with many other active investigations continuing. It's a raw number increase of 12, 75 versus 63. When you look at who we are arresting, it runs the gamut. I've seen individuals arrested that clearly have mental illness history. I've seen young children as young as pre-16 years of age arrested. I've seen individuals that have never crossed our paths before, meaning this is their first arrest, and then I've seen career criminals. So it truly runs the gamut in terms of what we've seen, the apprehended individuals thus far this year, trying to pinpoint one focal point in terms of the why has proven difficult.
And despite the motivation, this is something that we will not tolerate in New York City, and we do have the premier hate crimes unit in the United States. The front row?
So among these people that you're arresting for hate crimes, do you see any particular ideologies as a motivation among these people?
Yeah, we have.
Particularly interested in Semitic hate crimes, with that question.
We have not. As I said, we see a wide range of, not everyone talks, clearly, and we'll go through the appropriate process in terms of Miranda, et cetera. So we're very limited in terms of motivation at times, but it runs the gamut. We do, get statements from some of the individuals in terms of clear motivations coming out of that in an aggregate. I would be lying if I said I had that information.
Courtney?
For both you, Commissioner, and the Mayor, how much do you think the political climate is contributing to the uptick in hate crimes? And then just for the Mayor, this message here, safest big city, how much do you think this can contribute or boost or help along your 2020 campaign?
I'm not going to speculate on politics in the middle of this discussion. We're the safest big city in America. It's a fact. It's been a fact for years, and we're getting safer. That's what it's about. It's about what the people of this city deserve, the safest possible city, and the NYPD is doing an outstanding job. On the other question, look, I want to differentiate the city from the rest of the United States of America a bit. I think what we're seeing unquestionably is an unleashing of the forces of hate all over this country. And I want to remind people that particularly these white supremacist forces, they affront the Jewish community, they affront the Muslim community, they affront the gay community, it's the immigrant community. I mean, that's one of the things that's happening here. We didn't see those kinds of organizations out in the open as much as we're seeing now. By the way, they've often been a tremendous threat to law enforcement. If you look around the country for years and years, a lot of these right-wing militias have been willing to use force against law enforcement officers in many parts of this country, and that's thoroughly unacceptable. So that is happening nationally. I don't have a question in my mind. I think here, as you heard from the chief, it's a different reality in some ways, but that national backdrop sure doesn't help. I think it's put everyone on edge, and it's created a lot of division.
in the back row.
Yeah, in terms of the uptick in hate crimes or anti-Semitic hate crimes, is this a Crown Heights area problem, or is this a Williamsburg problem? How does that break down?
Dermot, you got the geography for that?
Yeah, you're right on in many ways. We definitely see some precincts spiking and taking a disproportionate share of those crimes. 7-1 precinct, 9-4 precinct in Brooklyn. We also see it on the Upper East Side in the 19th precinct. So there are hot spots, if you will, where we see a disproportionate share, but that's not to say that it's confined solely to that. We see small instances spread throughout the city.
In either one neighborhood, it's everywhere.
It constantly is, the answer is yes, there is upticks, and it constantly fluctuates. Over time, you tend to see it in certain neighborhoods more often, but in any given year, you will see ebbs and flows. We do outreach in areas. We also do investigations, not waiting for the next uptick in a particular area, and we treat all instances of hate crime, whether it's anti-Semitic or against any other protected individual, very, very seriously.
Yep.
On the hate crime statistics, are you seeing a lot of repeat offenders? Like, is this like one person who's responsible for multiple incidents? Do you have any kind of gauge on
Yeah, I've said publicly before, we certainly have incidents where one individual has been arrested multiple times. I've spoken publicly about one particular individual on the Upper West Side that clearly has mental illness issues. He has been arrested multiple times. He in fact, will not be prosecuted because he is deemed to be not responsible for his actions. So we do have individuals like that, but we also, what makes it extremely difficult is that when you look at the broad spectrum of who we've arrested and you start looking at large amounts of data, it is spread out, where it's not something that we see particularly with other traditional crimes, robberies, burglaries, even the gun violence that you mentioned earlier, where certain people show up over and over and over again. Makes it very easy to target them, to build patterns, and to build strong cases. This is a little different in that we see people that we have never been on our radar before in law enforcement, and suddenly they're committing an act.
And this motivation really it doesn't diminish the crime. It doesn't diminish the fear. That's for sure. So that's why we need everybody in New York City to pay attention. And if you have video, if you're a witness, come forward and help us make sure that there are severe consequences for these types of crimes. Yes, sir.
I just want to ask strategically, when it's not an actual physical attack, but maybe just a kid running a swastika, might it be wiser for maybe media or even the official not to make such a big deal about it? Because it's really what the kids want, is to be seen all over the place. Maybe it would go down if it wasn't reported as much. Is that possible?
Yeah, people have to understand the consequences. You know, even if you're a kid, there's different consequences that you do face depending on your age. But I don't think it's certainly not something that we can overlook. Yep.
One question for the mayor. Mr. Mayor, there was another crackdown on illegal e-bikes today in the 19th precinct. I've asked you about this before, and you rightly point out that bikes are in fact illegal, and the NYPD is merely enforcing the law. So I'd like to ask you to kind of a different way. You're obviously known as a progressive, empathic, and empathetic leader. So I'm wondering if you could imagine for a minute what your life would be like if you were a struggling immigrant delivery worker, struggling in a very difficult city, a strange city, to make a living under high-pressure circumstances like they are.
I will answer it, but I want to make sure we finish any other questions after that on the crime stats and before going to specific police matters. Look, I think that for so many immigrants in this city, they're struggling to make ends meet. It's tough. They're here trying to take care of their families. And, any one of us who remembers our immigrant roots can relate to that. You know, my grandparents came here, did not speak English, had to, come to an entirely different society and try and make it. So I feel for anyone, and I respect everyone who is trying to do that for their family. At the same time, I believe that the first thing we have to consider in public policy is safety. And right now we have a really challenging situation where e-bikes are illegal, as you noted, by state law, and we have a real safety problem. My hope is that the legislature will act while there's still time to come up with a regulatory approach that makes sense, or to defer to localities and let localities figure out that kind of regulatory approach. But right now, we have a situation that's not legally clear enough, and we have a safety problem that must be addressed at the same time.
As a follow-up on the progressive policies, I mean, you could, as the mayor, come up with some sort of program to convert these e-bikes into legal pedal assist bikes. Your city has obviously legalized those forms. Why not do something progressive like that?
Look, I think the first goal is to get the legislature to act so that we can have a legal framework. I think if that doesn't happen, we're going to look at all other options. But I want to put the horse before the cart here, Gersh. I think, and I know your constituency, your readers would be most interested in this, that we have a chance over the next 2-3 weeks to actually get this matter addressed in Albany. That's the best solution. But if that doesn't happen, we're going to look at a host of options.
Any more crime statistic questions? Yep.
I'm just curious, have you guys ever considered rape and sexual assault a type of hate crime against certain percentages of the population? I mean, as a woman, why wouldn't sexual assault also be considered a hate crime? Because, there is hatred behind those types of crimes.
I don't know if you've had those conversations with the state legislators, but that might be something that we could look at. There was a story last week, I'll bring it up before somebody asked the questions about how we categorize rape in New York City. So Dermot, I don't know if you want to talk about that, where we are? Oh, Jack, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon. Chief Jack Donahue, Chief of Strategic Initiatives. First of all, I'd like to echo what Chief Pollock had said earlier about encouraging all survivors of sexual assaults to make complaints. We encourage that. We urge that to happen. With respect to classifications of crimes, the questions that came up were differences in the types of crime or label to the state penal law versus the FBI's uniform crime reports. And the department takes reports of all sexual assaults and investigates them, all underneath the able supervision of Deputy Chief Judy Harrison of the Special Victims Division. Our reports are published on our website for the crimes of sexual crimes that occur in New York City underneath the state penal law, and we also have reported to the UCR, the FBI UCR program, since the definition of rape had changed in 2013 consistently every year since that point in time.
Yep, second. Right, hold on, somebody get you in the first row here.
Yeah, as far as the motivations go, first part, how long have these motivations been tracked by ethnicity? And secondly, is it possible that there is an uptick in reporting of hate crimes that maybe was reflected by, media accounts and media, being in the media more recently?
I think these categories have been since, at least since the Hate Crimes Task Force came to pass, which was in, I think, Dermot, in the 1990s, correct me if I'm wrong?
Yeah, I don't have the exact date. It's certainly a number of years that I've seen these reports in terms of internal NYPD tracking. And the answer to your question is a tough one. The second one, where either underreporting or overreporting is certainly a reality, not just in New York City, but New York State and across the country. How to pinpoint that is at times difficult.
In the back.
I wanted to ask the mayor something.
You can ask him, I'll tell him.
I'm curious,
This one's for you.
I'm ready. Last month, and I think today, you brought up the context of white nationalism, white supremacy nationwide. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about what you see as the nexus between that and the uptick in hate crimes here, when Shay has talked about how there's no clear pattern about who is committing these crimes.
I said earlier that I think there's a difference between what we're seeing here in New York City and what we're seeing around the nation. But I also want to be very clear. I mean, it's, over the last 3 years, something very dangerous is happening in this country with the rise of white supremacist voices and white supremacist organizations. And what I'm trying to help get across is that that threatens so many different people in this country, and certainly in this city. And it's a reality that unfortunately underlies a lot of what I think is happening, because again, that movement works against the Jewish community, the Muslim community, the immigrant community, the LGBT community. I mean, it's so negative and broad-based that I think it is part of why we're seeing an uptick in hate crimes all over the country. But I think here, as you're hearing, we're seeing something particular and different. I don't think the fact that our reality here is our own reality takes away from the fact that something clearly important and negative is happening in our country.
Any more questions about crime stats? Yep.
Well, it's about crime.
Like crime, like,
Why don't we see if there's anything on the stats first? If there's anything on the stats, let's finish this up.
second row.
With Pride Month beginning, is the NYPD looking to bolster more, just more?
I don't know about
looks-
stats. Let's just see if there's anything.
No, it's more than the hate crime, because I mean,
Okay.
it's Pride Month, and there's probably, there might be some concern from the LGBT community that they could be targeted from people who just don't believe in Pride Month or, their community. I mean, has the NYPD gotten any type of indication that there is concern that parties or organizations could be targeted during Pride Month?
There's no specific or credible threats, but we do work with the LGBTQI community very closely. I have a liaison in my office that does a lot of outreach, as does community affairs. So we're in constant communication, and June's going to be a very busy month, culminating in the Pride Parade, the last Sunday of the month. So we're looking forward to it, and we've been working on this and planning it for a long time. So it should be a great month. Yeah.
One last